Welcome, listeners. This is Thrice, a Sinister Siblings podcast where we watch horror movies not once, not twice, but thrice to see what reveals itself, if anything, from repeat viewings. With me is my lovely wife, Tracy.
Hello.
And her brother and my brother-in-law, Mark.
Hello.
And you are?
And I am Adam.
There we go. There you go. Yeah. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, the way it basically works is, as Adam said, we'll watch a movie 3 times. Traditionally, it will be the first time at the cinema, and then when it comes out on streaming or home physical media. And the way it will work is that we do our initial part of the review and the discussion based off our own impressions from the initial viewing, followed by a second viewing with input from each other, and then the third time round with some external input, whether that's from yourselves or whether that's from people involved in the making of the film, either in front of or behind the camera. So, Tracy, would you like to explain to the listeners what movie we're looking at tonight?
Yes. So the movie in question is called In a Violent Nature. And it had a very short run at the cinema. It was only about 4 or 5 days, and we were all lucky enough to catch it there. I say lucky enough.
Here in Australia, that is.
In Australia, yes. So the synopsis is when a group of teens takes a locket from a collapsed fire tower in the woods, they unwittingly resurrect the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 60-year-old crime. The undead killer soon embarks on a bloody rampage to retrieve the stolen locket, methodically slaughtering anyone who gets in his way. And then if you want to know in a nutshell, 3 words to sum this up according to the internet, the interwebs, it is harrowing, ominous and horrific. So
I would add to that who amongst us has not taken a locket from a collapsed fire tower?
well, I know.
I know, right? That's how obvious.
There's always repercussions. Always.
You would take the locket, though.
Would you? I wouldn't.
I would.
Well, no,
You would.
someone even said, "Oh, don't." Oh, that's right. They were like, "Oh, maybe it's a grave." And, I don't know. We'll get
What,
to
you
that.
two both
Actually, well, we
thieves?
can.
Okay.
We can.
You're in the middle of nowhere and you're like, hey, look, there's a locket.
No,
Pick it up.
they would be all crummy and gross anyway.
Right.
Well, that's where it starts, actually. So we may as well start at the beginning there, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Literally, it opens up with the locket.
yes, on a
Um,
pipe.
Yeah, and teenagers are walking past it. And
Yeah.
They're like, "Don't take it."
Initially, I thought there was somebody alive buried underneath because the pipe looked like it was, empty. So it looked like you
hollow.
could breathe through it. Hollow, that would be the word. You could look. So I thought, oh, there's someone underneath, like, in a grave and they're breathing through the pipe.
Maybe Johnny was breathing through the pipe.
Could have
He
been.
came up from underneath.
He did. And this is what threw me.
That was probably for the actor.
Possibly. Yes. So, because it was a Shudder production, a
Yes.
Shudder original. So, yeah.
So it's broke the shackles of the straight-to-streaming crowd, and obviously it was a bit of a festival hit overseas, and
Yeah, it was Sundance, selected for Sundance.
so it was obviously successful enough to be able to get a cinematic release here in Australia, which is great. And the last one of those, I think, that I recall was Skinamarink, which is, I'm glad to say I enjoyed this one more than Skinamarink.
Was that a Shudder movie as well?
I think it might have been, but it was more the fact it was one of those festival movies that managed to get enough of a groundswell to get into the cinemas.
Yeah.
We may have to get Shudder. You could probably do a podcast just on Shudder things.
You could.
Yes. So,
You're gunning for a sponsor there, are you, Adam?
No. Help me out. No, I actually, I stopped. As a side note, I stopped subscribing to it because I just made it too hard. It had too,
that's where you wrap it up there, Adam. Oh, my
There
God.
you go.
Anyway, back to the movie. And so,
Well, talking about that introduction thing, one of the first things that grabbed me was the aspect ratio that they chose to present it in.
oh, okay.
So it came across very much that old VHS style.
Yes.
It was more that square TV, that
Yes.
133 to 1, which I thought was obviously a very deliberate choice, but I thought that was interesting because whilst it's trying to be a new thing for slasher movies, I like the fact that they made it look like it could have been a slasher movie you were watching from the 80s.
Absolutely. It was like an homage to Friday the 13th, really.
I
In
thought that was
many
literally
ways.
just because it was made for TV. Like, but
Well,
not.
Well,
I
you
don't
might be
know.
right.
Well, it could be, and that's where I also found it a bit almost misleading for me, was that it did have that different look to it. It did sort of stop you. So when you sort of watch the trailer before going to see the film, it did have those elements. I mean, it's selected for Sundance, immediately the person in me, the bit of the critic in me is like, oh, Sundance film. Okay, this is cool. Maybe this is a bit of a cut above. There you go. And then just some of the scenes as well. And even the font that they used for the title of the film, you're sort of like, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit different. Maybe this isn't strictly mainstream. This could be really interesting. So, yeah, I think it was very deliberate and very considered, and probably more so not just for, it could go to television screens, but more as a cinematic choice.
What do you make of the decision to also have no score?
It definitely added to the ambiance.
Well, I thought it was an interesting decision because a lot of films, I guess, treat you a bit dumb, and they'll go, here's a scary bit, and here's a funny bit, and whereas this was, I like the fact that it just left it very natural because it basically just sort of said, by doing that, if you think this scene is funny, laugh. If you think this scene is scary, be scared. Yeah. So I thought that was actually a really clever way of doing things because the way it was structured was obviously then the only noises you had were just nature.
Yeah, the forest noises.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you say that now, it's like I didn't notice that it didn't have any music in it. But I did notice the nature sounds. Like, that was, like, really prominent kind of element of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I picked up on that, but I didn't actually notice the absence of music. But, yeah, you're right. It's like it can be a bit of a crutch that sort of tells the audience how they're supposed to feel. This just kind of...
I guess
to let it just sort of play out.
It's sort of two-sided. Like, it sort of might tell the audience how to feel, but it also might be another storytelling device, sort of showing you something extra that's happening in the film, another element. So it could, it works in both ways. So the first kill in the film, so after they take the locket and he bursts out of his, leaf-strewn grave. He heads for a farm, doesn't he, on the outskirts of town?
Yeah,
old Uncle Drunk,
and that's where it sets up. The perspective, the camera angle that you're going to be seeing a lot of in this movie, which is kind of wide, sort of behind field of view, behind the killer, following him along.
Yeah.
Very much like, and the first thing that Trace said when we left the movie was, it was like a video game.
Yes.
And it was interesting, that was interesting to me because it is a lot like, you guys haven't played it, but it's a lot like the reminded me of the Friday the 13th video game that came out in 2017. And they also did a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game that Gun Media, the same people, the same developers, which I should look them up. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's basically that you are the killer and you're trekking around, you're chasing down teenagers.
Yeah, but his face was pretty disappointing, really. But I did sort of want to see his face. Like, I was just like, it was like you were walking right behind him the whole time. So it really, it didn't feel like you're seeing it from his perspective, but not through his eyes. And so I was just looking at the back of this dude's head the entire time as he slowly lumbered through the movie, one slow step at a time.
However, there were moments where, and I found it really interesting, there was moments where you were very active in the scene because you were riding shotgun, you were on the shoulder, so you were going where he was going. But then they would very deliberately take you right out of it and you'd have this third-party passive view where you'd now be on the other side of the lake or whatever, and you're looking at things from a great distance.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really interesting because you most films will tend to have one point of view. They'll set you up and you get into that rhythm, whereas this one was very deliberate in choosing to make you a participant, but then a voyeur, and then back and then forth. And it almost made me think, when you get that that unreliable narrator in a story where, like, things that Poe and that used to do, where, you suddenly realise the person who's telling the tale, you can't trust what they say. And it was I felt that was how that direction in cinematography was being used, was you'd be involved in it. So what comes to mind right now is the scene with the two girls, and one girl gets drowned and the other girl gets turned inside out on the top of the cliff. But,
Which is pretty full-on and graphic, let me say.
We'll get to the gags in 1 second. But yeah, that whole thing. So the lake, we follow Johnny to the lake, and then he goes off, and then we kind of stand back now. And so it's really interesting, because a lot of criticism of the slasher films back in the day was that fact that you were that point of view, that Michael Myers looking through the eyes kind of thing. So I thought it was really interesting the way they chose to do that.
Yeah. And I think, this edition of the podcast is going to have, I think, a lot of differing views from us, because I think we all had a really strong reaction to this film in different ways. And I mean, from my perspective, I agree with what you say, but then it could also be that the director, it was like a film school project. He was just trying out different styles and seeing what fitted.
Whack.
So, yes.
Well, I feel like it was an experiment. I feel like it was riffing on like kind of the language of horror movies, I guess, like slasher movies, which pretty much everyone knows now. Everyone understands, even your most sort of lay kind of horror fan or movie watcher understands what a slasher movie is and the tropes of a slasher movie. And when you watch this movie, they're like, it's a slasher movie turned inside out, basically. That's the assignment, Yeah.
If you can hear noises in the background, that's just our little cat Mina, who's trying to participate.
That's Mina, secret fourth member of the pod.
The podcat.
But it doesn't fit with the Thrice theme, so she doesn't get credited.
Yes.
So just going back a little bit to Uncle Drunk.
Yes, the first dude.
Now, the ranger was there, and the ranger was like, stop setting traps in the woods and all this sort of stuff. But then when Johnny pops on the scene, Uncle Drunk's not terrified.
No.
And what I want to bring to the table is, yet again, we seem to be watching a lot of films that have elements of folk horror in it.
Yes, yeah.
And I look at this and I think Uncle Drunk seemed to know who Johnny was. And then later in the film, we have the ranger who talks about his dad and how they knew what was going on.
Yes, yeah.
So there's a generational thing of people knowing what's happening here. And even at the end, the lady in the car seems somewhat aware of there's something happening in the woods. And so it does have that element of folk horror running through it. Just a theme, just a thread, but like a lot of horror lately, which is interesting. So with the Uncle Drunk side of things, so moving on from that, we sort of then get to our party. And I thought it was interesting because unlike a traditional slasher, we don't sit with them at the campsite. And we don't get to explore those tropes and go, she's the slut and he's the jock and he's the funny guy and she's the studious one. Like, we don't really get that. And part of me liked that change. And then part of me felt the film lacked something because the characters felt a bit one-dimensional then.
Absolutely. I felt the same way. I thought, I didn't think much of the acting from anybody in this film, but particularly I felt that the campers were one-dimensional and they were also just not very nice. Like, there's one scene where one of the guys, I think he's going out into the woods to, I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's going to the toilet. I can't remember what he was doing out in the woods.
Wasn't he going to go see the girls from the gas station?
Something like that. And they were teasing it. But I just sort of, they went on and on and on and on. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, are you friends with him or not? I just sort of thought it was really mean-spirited. And I didn't feel like, I felt they were all really one-dimensional. I was like, yeah, kill them. That's cool with me. You're good.
I thought they were funny.
Well, I don't know. It's probably funny once, Adam.
I felt I disagree. I felt like, we oddly, like I was saying, because we're all sort of familiar with slasher movies and how they work, I felt like we were given enough to understand everything we needed to know about these teenagers, which kind of surprised me, because that's always been a criticism of slashers anyway, that the characters are one-dimensional.
Yeah. That's right. Like, we had enough. Like Mark was saying, you sort of, the roles that everyone's playing. So, there's going to be somebody in the mix who's playing the jock, someone who's the studious one. Yeah. So, the roles that they're going to be playing. You know why they're there. They're there there's fodder. That's like what they do.
But you didn't care about it.
But you didn't care. It wasn't even like, oh, that's Susie and she's so sweet and, she was really...
Or the resourceful final girl or anything.
Yeah, you're like, there's that person. I don't even remember their name.
Because normally you end up, even some of the tropes, you might be like, I really like the fat sidekick guy. He's fun, but you don't really get to spend any time with him.
No.
But that's the thing. This movie, it's weird because you're watching and you're like, that guy's going to be the first one to get killed, and then he gets killed, and then it just keeps going on like that.
Yeah.
And yet, but it wasn't necessarily boring. But it was just
I found it boring.
Tracy found it incredibly boring, yeah. Tracy hated this movie.
Yes, I did, which is unheard of for me. I'll watch anything apart from this.
Well, tell me about the gore, Adam.
Yes.
The gore is clearly a feature of this one. They chose to really go for it.
Yeah.
What did you think about some of the gore gags?
Yeah, it was unexpected. I guess it did kind of... If it wasn't for that, I kind of felt like, in a odd way, this movie wasn't a horror movie. Because once you're following the killer, it's not scary. It becomes like a power fantasy,
Interesting.
But that's a whole other argument about whether or not you think a horror movie should be necessarily scary as such. But the gore made it, okay, at least this is a gore fest kind of thing. There was one kill in with a table saw, like the logging saw.
Mm-hmm.
That was good. I liked that was all like just one. There was no cuts in that. It was very effective. Just like a long single shot.
There was a few cuts.
There was
Boom,
cuts.
boom.
No edits. Yeah, and that was like that did feel like you weren't watching. You, Trace, was turned away like in that scene, and you felt like it did have that cool kind of grimy. You felt like you were seeing something you shouldn't see, kind of. And it also effect, and also had a bit of a magic trick to it, where you were like, he was breathing, the guy, and you're like, oh, but then you're looking for the cut to where they replaced it with a dummy as they cut his arms off and cut the head off, and so you find yourself looking for those kind of sleights of hand as well.
But still, like with that, I feel like they had a missed opportunity. I really thought that with that particular saw, they were going to cut him in half. They were going to have it go in between his legs.
From groin to head.
Yeah, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh.
Well, I think Johnny particularly wanted to drag that one out for that guy.
I just sort of thought,
That scene reminded me of Mick Taylor's Head on a Stick. The bit how he like paralysed the guy and went, I'm going to just take my time cutting you to pieces now and you'll watch it all. I was like, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
Really? God.
So that kill, you're asking me about the gore, I guess. I'd say there's two main bits of gore in it, that and the girl with the hook that gets kind of, he hooks her in the head and he pulls her head through her stomach, basically. And
ties her in a knot kind of thing.
Yeah, ties her in a knot, like a pretzel.
That was impressive. I was not expecting that.
No, and it was kind of funny. It was I found the logging one to be kind of
that was sort of
grimy and
Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, very Texas Chainsaw. But the other one was kind of comical,
Yeah. But what I didn't get was the inconsistency with the kills. Like in that with the girls in the lake and the pretzel girl. Like the first girl, he he lumbers on into the lake like, Jason, our friend, under the lake. And he goes in there and he kills the girl who's in the water. Just drowns her. Just, quick, quiet drowning there. And then he goes and turns and walks for miles at a very slow,
I was laughing,
ponderous pace with just the birds as his company. Then he finally gets to the top of this mountain. Why this girl walked for 3 days to go.
She was doing yoga.
Up in the, yes. Anyway, so she walked for miles to go do her yoga session. But he gets up there and then he turns her into a pretzel. And I was just like, how come the other chick got off so lightly? I don't understand. Like some of them was just like, one and done. Other times he was like, I'm just going to take a little bit off at a time. I didn't understand his methodology, his signature. I didn't get it.
They weren't all gory.
No, which,
Yeah, it did seem odd because all of a sudden it was like, wow, she really, the girl that gets pretzeled.
Yeah, she really copped it.
I was like, gee, she really copped it and she didn't need to. He didn't have any personal beef with it.
But there was the boyfriend late in the piece where he just got his head beaten and beaten.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
And I was like, that's horrible.
That was ridiculous.
And that was probably messy for the sake of being messy.
I think so too.
I mean, don't be wrong. You were like, oh, Jesus, okay, that's horrid.
Yeah. I sort of think it had two things for me. Like it was, I thought some of the gory stuff was, again, really reminiscent of early 80s slashers, particularly things like, Friday the 13th. I thought it was really reminiscent of that. But then there's a part, I can't remember who says it in the film, but where this woman says animals don't necessarily have a reason, they just kill.
Yes.
And so I thought that potentially could explain the discrepancy and why some people he just killed quickly. Other people he was doing all sorts of stuff because he had no rhyme or reason. He was just, living his life, living his best life there.
Yeah.
Trying to search for this locket, which was the underpinning of the whole situation.
Which undercuts the whole idea of like the title as well, and violent nature. And it's like he wasn't just killing for no reason. He was out to get the locket.
Yeah, and he was just violent with it.
I guess so.
Well, that's the whole thing, because it sort of started as revenge for being slighted with the urban legend. And that was something I liked about the film was it didn't give you a traditional level of exposition. It was a snippet here and a snippet there. It almost felt like an escape room, that there were just clues deposited and you really needed to be sharp to go, oh, hang on, that person said that thing, didn't they?
But then when they got to the ranger's station and the ranger was there, and I think they'd knocked him out at one point and they were trying to tie him up, and the guy suddenly got all weak-kneed and couldn't possibly put the chain around his legs. And, hilariousness ensues. But the ranger then gave the big backstory as to what had happened. So, again, playing into our usual tropes of there's always, somebody, the old codger, who tells you the story of what really went on.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Okay.
It's like a similar kind of thing. It's like, okay, you guys know how these movies go, but it's all of a sudden you're with the killers now, and it's just a huge misunderstanding. They're not killer hillbillies at all. They're just like goofy guys. But I actually enjoyed that movie a whole lot more, but, for different reasons, but a similar approach.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you think of Johnny's fireman mask thing?
Is that what they really wear? Like, is that a real?
That's an old version.
Yeah, maybe back in the day.
Yeah.
I dug it. I thought that was really good.
Well, exactly. It was a bit of a nod to the past, sort of like My Bloody Valentine, with the miner's mask.
Yeah.
So I thought that was probably one of the better elements that we had.
Yeah, it was cool. And his weapon was cool too, the log dragging.
The log hooks, yeah. I thought that was nice because it actually was themed a little bit. It wasn't...
Yeah.
It was on brand.
Indeed.
Yeah, it had a whole... That's right. There was a whole fleshed out kind of mythology behind this killer, the logging and burnt in the fire, fire tower and stuff.
But sort of coming back to the nature backdrop and how that has featured in a lot of films that we've been watching lately. So we watched The Watchers and The Woods. I particularly felt, played a main role in that movie, preventing them from escaping. But then even things, films like Immaculate, where again was the beautiful Italian countryside, also played a part to sort of, I guess, show the light against the dark of what was going on. But I felt in this movie, I was just like, because I love nature and, in my life, I love it. But I was just like, enough already. We have had enough big, wide shots of you walking through the woods. I just felt like it was filler. I'm just like, there he goes again. All right, 5 minutes pass. Okay, we're still walking.
But you know what that was, though? I feel like I was laughing. And Trace is looking at me like, why are you laughing? And it's like, I feel like this was a funny movie. And I feel like I'm not sure even if it was meant to be funny, but it's funny because... that is what it must be like for the killer. When you're watching a horror movie and all of a sudden the killer's out of nowhere. Yeah, for that to happen, he's walking a hell of a long way, trudging along. Yeah. And all of a sudden...
And he is kind of undead in this film too, so he's a bit of a shuffler.
It was amusing.
But it annoyed the crap out of me.
Amusing, yes. Entertaining, not necessarily.
Well, initially it was very interesting.
Yeah.
But then I felt it probably slowed the film unnecessarily later in the piece when you're like, now what? Stomp,
oh my goodness me! Honestly,
but I guess they hitched their wagon to that as a visual thing, and I guess that's the hook. And look, the sequel's been greenlit. I think they announced it at Comic-Con. Really? Yeah, they announced the sequel at Comic-Con in July.
Oh my god!
Wow. So you're assuming it'll be more over the shoulder with Johnny.
Oh lordy be! Oh my god!
So one thing I quite liked was the end sequence. So
Yeah, yeah.
the traditional final girl thing is she discovers her inner resilience and, somehow makes this miraculous battle and beats the baddie. Whereas in this case, our final girl watches her husband, boyfriend get his head pummeled into mush and goes, you know what?
Have your locket.
She's like, I'm going to put down my petrol can here and I'm going to put down my locket and I'm leaving. And which is pretty realistic. Most people would go, you know what? I can't do this by myself. So I really liked that she then got picked up by that lady. And I found that whole sequence riding down the hill really, really tense.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
me
was.
too.
Because you were like, is this lady in on it?
Yeah.
Is she... Because there was a point where the lady's like, oh, look, I better pull over and have a look at that ankle. And you're like, here it comes.
Yes,
This is going to be it.
Yeah.
But even in her turns of phrase, she was like, oh, sweetheart, oh, darling, look at me, kind of, not in the Kath and Kim, look at me, but she was like,
I got one word for you.
I've got one word for you.
Johnny.
Johnny. But yeah, it made you go, oh, she's being too overly familiar. She's being too, like, there's something
Yeah,
wrong
and she's
with
like,
this
oh,
woman.
I've seen other people come out of the woods like that too. Oh, so it was an animal, was it? And,
Yeah.
And I was like, and so she's staring out the door, and you're just waiting for something to come out,
Exactly.
and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, you're either waiting for something to come out, you're waiting for her to drive her back to Johnny,
Yeah.
or you're waiting for her to get killed suddenly as she's like helping her with the stitches.
Well, that's the thing, because they talk about Johnny's mum, and that's the locket. But I didn't really pick up through the bits of exposition I heard anything really about mum. It was like dad and son seemed to get attacked at the logging camp or whatever, but the mum didn't seem to be mentioned. So I was like, is this the mum? Is this what's going on? Is it going to be a little bit of a Chainsaw Massacre kind of thing where suddenly you think they're the help and then they're not? And so that played really well, because this whole time you're just going, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? And then we end with this sequence of her staring intently into the woods, and you're waiting and you're waiting. And it sort of, and I'm not going to compare the two, but it reminded me a little bit the end of the original Halloween, where you're just looking at these vacant spaces.
But didn't you also get, like, at the end of Friday the 13th, where she's looking out into Camp Crystal Lake and she's waiting?
Then he's still out there.
He's still out there. It was exactly like that, like the woods, like the natural environment. He's still there. He's still out there. He's still waiting. That was exactly how I felt when there was that final scene. He's still there.
Which is probably what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Setting it up for the sequel.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I thought that end sequence is probably the best part of the film.
Yeah,
Because I was genuinely sitting there going, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah,
Something's
I would
gonna...
agree. That was probably, that was interesting. I found that interesting for that 5-10 minutes of my life there. That was interesting. But yeah, so I guess, if we're wanting to talk about, how we found the film, and I think maybe we give it a bit of a summation and a rating out of maybe golden lockets.
Yes, stolen lockets.
Stolen lockets.
Or log hooks.
Log hooks?
Lockets.
Lockets, maybe?
Let's do that.
A locket
Do
on a
both.
log hook. A locket on a log hook.
That
Try and
sounds-
say that.
That just sounds more like his biography, Log Hooks and Lockets. Like John.
What do you like it? Go on. Yeah.
Well, let me say,
I-
I would give it 2 lockets
Is this 5 or 10?
10.
out of 10. It's always out
Whoa.
of 10. I found that the scariest thing about this film was the weird woman sitting in our row at the cinema.
Oh, yeah.
The best thing about this film was that it ended.
Ouch.
And praise Jesus that it wasn't a long movie.
Ooh, you're Generation J.
That's about as scathing as it gets for Tracy.
That really is. Wow, well, you haven't seen Skinamarink then.
No. And that's me. Mic dropped.
There you go. Looking forward to your... What are you looking forward to on your repeat viewings?
Redemption.
Absolutely nothing. I'm at home, so maybe I can take breaks while he's walking somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, so recently on the pod we covered Longlegs, and Longlegs was in some quarters marked as like a new beginning and a new iteration of serial killer films, which, look, if you hear what we're talking about in that episode, I'm not necessarily on board with that. This one's also been painted as a little bit of a new direction for slasher films, and I would think it is. It's certainly different than any other slasher film I've seen. My sister's pulling faces. I'm not sure why.
Well, it's exactly like every other horror film you've ever seen.
Well, there you go.
It's a slasher. It's a slasher born and bred.
It is a slasher, no doubt, but it's different from any other
slasher.
slasher.
How? I don't see how. Like every scene you can draw just like direct correlations to different films from literally from the 80s, from all these campaway, sleepaway films.
But you're always with the victims, not the killer.
But still, that was obviously a blessing because being with the killer is really boring.
Well, this is the thing. So that's what you ultimately, I think, what this movie comes down to. I feel like, sorry, you haven't even...
Yeah.
No, please. Let's keep discussing. I'll come back to it.
I feel like... No, you finish your review.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so I believe, yes, whilst it obviously wears its influences on its sleeve, I mean, no film's made in a vacuum, so I can get, if I made a slasher film, it'd probably have some dashes as well. So I think it is a new direction. It'd be interesting to see what they decide to do with the sequel. I thought the narrative structure was interesting. I thought the cinematography was interesting. I think they made a lot of interesting choices. For me, next time round, I'm obviously, now that we know the through story, you can look a bit more around the frame and sort of see what else there is to pick up. I'm keen to pick up some more on that exposition side of things, see what clues I maybe didn't hear or notice, maybe try and learn a little bit more about the people involved, like the actual campers and things, to see if there is a bit more colour to some of them. But for me, I would recommend this to a lot of people to have a look at. I mean, it's a hardcore horror film, so because of the gore level and the cruelty side of things, you go, it's not a casual watch. Certainly not the sort of film you'd recommend to people to have at a sleepover. But if you're listening to this podcast, you probably like your horror. So I would give it a firm recommend, and I'm looking forward to watching it again. And I'm going to give it 7 lockets myself.
Wow, okay.
I actually think it's one of the better films I've seen this year.
Wow, there you go.
Dear God.
This is good, I like it. The divisiveness.
So, Adam,
It's
what's
hard.
your take?
It's really hard for me because I'm kind of...
In both camps, I think.
A little bit. I'm oddly... I get indifferent, I guess, to this movie, which ultimately, I guess, means I should be underwhelmed. I feel like this movie is an experiment. I feel like making it was an experiment, and I feel like watching it is an experiment. And ultimately, it comes down to whether or not you think that experiment succeeds. Do you find it scary? Yes or no? Do you find it entertaining? Yes or no? I found it funny. I didn't find it boring. There was some great sort of scenes in it, disturbing kills and amusing kills. I guess I'm going to give it, I'm making a big swing if nothing else. I'm going to give it 6 lockets out of 10.
What are you hoping to look for or uncover next time at the next viewing?
I guess I just want to see if I warm to it more or I bounce off of it now that I know what I'm in store for.
Yeah, and that's obviously part of what we do, is to see how things stand up under repeat viewings.
Yeah. It was cool though. But would I recommend it? I actually, in my work, I deal with a very public-facing job, and when I spoke to people about it, I was reluctant to recommend it, I guess.
I think maybe if somebody is a hardcore horror person, they might want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's for your casual horror watcher.
Has anyone dived into what the internet is saying? What the viewing public?
I've stayed away from it, obviously, to get ready for this. A lot of the online stuff I have seen, it seems very swingy as well. People either like, wow, this is really cool, or, the more closed-minded view like Tracy's of, no, but other people are tending to be, I saw it, couldn't stand it. So it seems quite polarising. Excuse me. And so that's good. Sometimes you want that, not everything needs to be the latest, sort of cookie cutter.
Yeah, because I would say it wasn't even that it was bad. I just found it boring. The pacing was just all off for me. I just was like, I'm never in a position in the cinema where I'm like, oh, I might pull out my phone. And I would never pull out my phone, let me just say. No. But I was tempted.
That's a party foul completely, that is. So there you have it. So we've got some differing views. So from here, you'll have a very short break, and it'll be, in real-world sense, a bit of a longer break for us as we wait for Inner Violent Nature to hit streaming or physical media, which I think it's already on its way due to its limited theatrical release. So we will be back very shortly with part 2 of our conversation around Inner Violent Nature. But for now, goodbye.
Bye.